Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Dee Dee. I work as a full-time registered nurse. I make videos on curly hair, lifestyle, and nursing stuff. If you're interested, then please hit a like and subscribe. Please also comment. I want to engage with you guys. So last video I just finished making, I talked about places that I've worked in my 3 years as a nurse. And this video I'm going to talk about why I've quit every job that I've had as a nurse. If you're interested, then please keep on watching. The first nursing job that I've worked at, I quit. So I was working at the nursing home. So I didn't initially quit. I asked to transfer over to rehab because I was getting very overwhelmed as a new grad nurse. When you're in nursing school, most of your clinicals are in the hospital. So that's where I was used to working. I was used to being in the hospital. So when I got into the nursing home, it was like a shock. So, I mean, everything was on paper with the exception of I think documenting, we would write notes on the computer. I felt unsafe working on the long-term side. A lot of my residents had dementia, so they were very confused, especially on the shift that I worked. I worked evening shift, and if you know anything about the elderly in dementia, they do sundown. They typically sundown around dinner time. There's an increase in confusion. I had to do a lot of, I don't want to say it because it's just degrading to say, but I had to put some of the residents nearby me so I could watch them while I did my med pass. The residents would try to get up when they were in a wheelchair. You'd have to keep going back to tell them, you can't do that, you'd have to, and then you'd also have to get into their worlds because they're so confused, and that's what they teach you. When you do dementia training, they teach you to go into their worlds and kind of follow whatever they're thinking, because if you try to go against them, then it's just going to increase their aggression and their anger, and they're not going to understand. I left that side because I wanted more experience. Honestly, I wanted more experience like the hospital setting, and I could get that on the rehab side. It's not exactly hospital, but it's subacute. I was getting my foot wet as far as leaving the long-term side. I felt more like I was utilizing my skills that I was learning, because on the long-term side, all I was doing was passing meds and, doing wound care, which requires a lot of skill, but I didn't like the fact that I saw the same thing every single shift. It was getting a little repetitive for me, so it was nice to be on the rehab side where I saw a lot of different things because people weren't there all the time. So that was nice. I left there because I wanted more of a hospital experience, and the pay wasn't so great. Before I left there, I picked up a shift at the agency, which I mentioned in the jobs that I've had as a nurse. I picked up one shift. The pay was great, but it was scary as heck. It was so scary because I had a patient with a high blood sugar and I had to give insulin, and I was asking the nurse, where do I get insulin syringes? And she completely ignored me, and I was like, excuse me. And she pointed, literally was just but didn't even look. So she was like, I was like, what? I went to the med room, and then I asked her again. I was like, I'm sorry, I can't find it. And she huffed and puffed, and she got up and threw it to me my cart. So that wasn't fun. There was actually a CNA there who recognized me. She was like, oh, I know your mom. Isn't your mom blah blah blah? I was like, yeah, it's my mom. She was like, are you working here part-time? And I was like, no, I just picked up through the agency. And she was like, don't pick up here again. And I told her what happened, how the nurse had thrown me the insulin syringe. And she was like, yeah, this place will make you fear for your license. She's like, they had such a mass exodus. So I left there, picked up one shift, and never again. A little secret, that nursing home got shut down. So while I was at the LTAC, some of the cons that I had, The patients were very heavy as far as like what, you know, their care is. They were literally heavy because a lot of them were total care. And like I said in the first video, we typically only had one CNA on my floor. Breaking my back most of my shifts. I was like scared for the future older me. I also felt unsafe there because the doctors barely responded to my pages. Now we have like electronic text messaging. The acute care hospitals that I've worked at have implemented this. Let me know down below if your hospital implements this, but we have text messaging systems that we can contact the doctor and the providers on. So every time I paged, it took forever to get a response. Sometimes I wouldn't even get a response. I know there was one NP who was like infamous for not responding. I didn't like that place because, yeah, I didn't feel safe there. And also the pay was not that great. I wanted more of an acute care experience. I mean, I was getting more experience as far as like, you know, the level of care from the rehab versus the LTAC. Like the LTAC, there was higher acuity, but they were still in a long-term acute care hospital, so a lot of the patients were there for a long-term period of time. I wanted something more exciting, so I left there and I went to my third full-time position. I have my list here because I keep skipping around. So while I was at the LTAC, I worked like a home care agency and more like home visits. So I did home visits, and I quit that job because I would have to arrange appointments based on where the patients lived. I tried to make it easier on me and easier on the patients and easier on my car because I was driving a hoopty. Like, the car was like on its deathbed. I didn't like it because sometimes the patients would not answer me, and then they would call me during my full-time job, and I'm not answering during my full-time job, and they would call me constantly. Home visits are not paid by hour, you're paid by visit. So I felt like I was constantly working and I felt like I couldn't escape. And then, not to mention, one time I went and they weren't compensating me for miles. First of all, they weren't compensating me for miles. One time I went all the way up, I think about 45-minute drive. It was about 20 something miles, and I showed up to a patient's house and we had already confirmed the time. They weren't home. They forgot that they had a doctor's appointment. So my husband and I went to the sketch ass place, and we just like hung out, and I didn't get paid for it. I had to wait for the patient. I actually had a coworker who was like, I would have left, like, that's not your responsibility to wait around and stuff, but you know, I didn't know that, so I waited around, and yeah, so I left there. I was like, it's not worth the headache. It was an easy job as far as like just, you know, doing the vital signs, doing a quick assessment and writing a note, but it was annoying because I had to schedule things around my schedule. I had to schedule things around their schedule. I had to schedule around the geographical area, trying to make everybody's appointments around the same area, so I'm not driving from one end of the town back to the other end and then back to the other. So I would try to group everybody who was around the area at one time and then in the other area at one time, but it kind of felt like I was going back and forth because I was trying to accommodate everyone and nobody was like 100% happy. I always try to make people happy, so, and I wasn't happy, so I had to quit. After that, I also did home care. It was one-to-one. I had a boy and then I also had a girl. It was scary because it was just a one-to-one. There was no CNA there. There was no other nurse there. The job was heavy. Literally had to lift one of my patients onto the commode, like with no device, because the device was kind of gimmicky and the parents just showed me how they lifted the patient up into the commode. So it was really bad on my back, and it was kind of scary just being the one nurse there. So I quit that. I think it was good because I negotiated, and I think they paid me very fairly. But I left that, and then my third full-time job. I don't even think I mentioned this yet. So my third full-time job was at the Magnet Hospital, and I was on the night shift. It's the most toxic work environment I have ever worked in. And I can say that because I've had a lot of nursing jobs in my 3 years. It was the most toxic work environment ever. I've had multiple jobs, like nursing and non-nursing, and this was like, I was miserable there. I felt like I was in the movie Mean Girls.
Oh my God, I love your skirt. Where did you get it?
It was my mom's in the 80s.
Vintage. So adorable.
Thanks.
That is the ugliest effing skirt I've ever seen. Oh my God, I love your bracelet. Where did you get it?
I'm sure you guys have watched it. It's a cult classic. But yeah, so I hated that whole dynamic and the people I worked with. I hated it. I hated life. I hated my life on night shifts. Overall unhappy at this hospital. I was overall unhappy with my life. I was just over it. I was working 7p to 7a 2 nights a week, and I was also working 11p to 7a 2 nights a week. So I felt like I was home for like maybe a day. Like if you're a night shift, you know, when you have 4 nights off, or if you have 3 nights off, it's really only 2 or 3 nights off. Like first night you're off, you're really just playing catch up with sleep. So I was overall unhappy there. A lot of anxiety going into work. Like I would feel it in my chest. I was just not comfortable. Like my body just knew I didn't belong there. My soul knew I didn't belong there. So I had applied to this big Boston hospital, and I made a video about it. I will link it down below. It was a blessing in disguise. I got this new job, and I have been there since January, and I love it. Oh my gosh. I forgot that I worked at a psych hospital, and I didn't mention it in the places I've worked because I've lost count. I worked at the psych hospital in December of 2019 because I had lost my job in November of 2019 because I miscarried. So I got a job in December of 2019. I have a mortgage to pay. I've got bills to pay, so your girl can't be without a job. I applied there. I applied multiple places. I was on my hospital bed and I was applying left and right. And I took the first job that came to me, and it was at a psych hospital. I worked there, and I guess I'll just include it in this video because I didn't talk about it in my where I've worked video, so this is a little bonus. So I worked there. It wasn't a bad commute. It was about half an hour away south, and then it was a nice hospital. It was like brand new. I think it's like 3 years old, very pretty, kind of high tech. We all had like little keys that we could just like slap our wrist on the little security thing, and it would open the door for you automatically, which was really cool. I didn't like it. I don't like psych nursing at all. I love the medical side of things. I love it. The psych nursing, it was just like we were at a desk. And I'm not saying every place runs this way. If you're a psych nurse and you love it, great, that's good for you. It's just not my niche. We would kind of just observe. And while we were observing, we would write notes. But the notes were like annoying. It was just like repetitive and they didn't make sense. The observations weren't that great. Like they were kind of like falsified by some nurses. Barely any communication. If there was communication, it was because somebody came up to us. I don't know. It was just bad. It was 2 RNs and 1 LPN. The LPN did med pass and the RNs interacted. But the LPNs also interacted, but the RNs were responsible for writing notes. We were also responsible for putting in orders. I just didn't like it. It's just not for me. Like, that's the easiest way I can put it. Pay isn't great either. I think psych nurses deserve more than they're actually paid, to be honest. I'm still at my current job and I love it. I've been there for 11 months. My coworkers are great. I love all my coworkers, like I mentioned in my first video. I'm very content at where I am right now, so we'll see what the future holds for little Miss Didi. But thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in this kind of content, then please subscribe for more. Don't forget to hit a like. Also follow me at curlygirl_RN. Also, thank you so much for watching. Stay tuned for more. Bye.